Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is April 15th, 2026, and I'm joined by Lauren Wood, Senior Producer at GUT in New York. Before working at GUT, Lauren was at McCann, where she worked across brands like L'Oreal, Prudential, Instax, Fujifilm, and at Gray on Gillette, Pringles, Lindt Chocolate, and IHG Hotels. She began her career in broadcast production with early experience spanning everything from New York local news to Saturday Night Live. I'm excited to have her here. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I'm sure the listeners are thinking the same thing, but of course, my first question is going to be about Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
You get that all the time?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't mind it. It was like very, very fun. It was like, it's so funny because I was essentially just a PA. Being a page is like you are at the bottom of the totem pole, but it was such a fun early experience to have when I first moved to New York. And it was something I had been such a fan of for so long. It was like just the coolest experience to get to see behind the curtain a little bit and understand how something like that is made. It's like the most incredible production feat. And I feel like really made me be excited to work in production and made me want to understand more about how other things actually get made. So yeah, it was very
well. And there you are back in Rockefeller Center now.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I didn't even realize that's where GUT was. And once I took the job and I got here, people were like, oh, do you realize there's all these restaurants in the basement? And I was like, oh, I know. Like I was down there all day, every day getting food. Like I am very aware and like had my people, you know, at different restaurants who could hook me up. And it's like a funny building to be back in because when you're a page, you really know the ins and outs of the entire building and how it all works. So
that's funny.
It's very nostalgic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your role as a senior producer at GUT. I'm interested to know what that entails for you.
Yeah. So I'm newer to GUT. I mean, the GUT New York office in and of itself is young. It's about 1.5 years old, which is a super exciting time to be here. And I feel like as a senior producer, you wear a ton of hats. A lot of it is taking ideas that the creatives dream up and sell into clients and figuring out how to make them real. I feel like that's truer at GUT than almost any other agency I've worked at, where we're thinking of new crazy ideas every day and figuring out who the right partners are for them, how we can actually make them within the money the clients have, how to foster, you know, what are the steps to actually make this, how are we going to share what we're doing along the way. And I feel like that's pretty much what my job is. It's like being the liaison between the creative team here and our clients and the vendors who we hire to make it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've always said that you and I are translators. You know, we have to speak everybody's language and just kind of translate what everybody needs into, you know, the language that the other person understands.
Totally. And I feel like it's very much being intuitive about how that other person needs to hear it. Like, I think the way I explain what we're doing or describe something to someone changes so much person to person because you can kind of get a read on how they need to be told something and what the best way to deliver that information is, which is kind of actually one of my favorite parts of our job. So,
and it's so true because everybody hears information differently. Mm-hmm. And that's not something I think you can learn, I feel, or you can teach. I feel like you can learn it through osmosis, right? Being around somebody who can do that well. But I think, I don't know, I feel like that has to be kind of come like from experience and like innate knowledge. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of feel like when I think back on like my early days of working in advertising, watching the producers around me who were really, really good at that and realizing that we're like allowed to do that. That's a good thing. That's not you being sneaky or changing anything. People need to be told things in different ways. And thinking, that's actually something I feel like I'm pretty good at. Like, I feel like I could lean in on that a little bit. So that is why it's probably one of my favorite parts of the job, because I think it's something that
comes naturally.
It comes naturally, and it's really like a people job. Like, you have to be kind of intuitive about the people around you and what they're feeling that day and where they're at and meeting them there.
What are you known for on your team?
I like to think I'm known for, I don't really like to say no very often, for better or for worse. I think sometimes there's things that kind of need a no, but that can come with a new solution or new idea. And I really like to be a resource for my team in that way. And I also like to think that I really believe in like having a sense of fun in our work. I feel like nobody gets into working in advertising or creative fields because they think it's going to be super serious. And some of my favorite people I've learned from and worked with have always kept it light and kept it fun. And I think that's when the best work gets made. So that's kind of something I'm always striving
That's
for.
great. I'm smiling. You can't see, but I'm smiling.
Yeah, great.
I mean, the industry is changing so much, and you hear people talk about how it's just not fun anymore. It's not the same anymore. So it's really refreshing to hear you say that. And that's something that you value. And that's something that your team and your agency values.
Yeah. And like, I think back on certain people who I really learned that lesson from. I've had creatives who we've been in the most stressful shoot day in the middle of chaos, in the middle of things going wrong. And they've still been cracking jokes and keeping it moving and keeping spirits high. And I just admired that so much and was like, oh, that is such a great way to be. I feel like it also keeps people from kind of checking out. And that is when things fall apart, you know?
My husband is very funny and very quick with like funny line or something. And he can diffuse a situation so quickly. And it's, you know, and I've been around him a long time and I haven't learned, like, I can't learn that. Like that comes from somewhere else with him, you know? It's like, and when we were raising kids, he would, you know, it's like he could come into the room and just diffuse it with humor, with whatever angst or anxiety or issues were going on. And it's a special gift. It's really special.
Yeah, I think it's something that too, like when you find people who are really good at that, I just love glomming onto those people. Like it's something that is so infectious to be around. So I feel like I'm always trying to keep that.
Yeah, it's great.
You know, how I'm on set and how I am during prep and all of the stressful parts of our job.
So what would be helpful for, you know, artists like directors and photographers and reps to kind of understand about your job?
I think that something that is good for other people to be aware of, and I think some people are so aware of this, and it's really great when you find someone who already has this understanding, is just the layers that go into working something through on the agency side and on the client side. Like, I feel sometimes when people are getting frustrated that they're asking for what they think is a simple answer, and it's taking me a really long time to get back to them, or it's taking, you know, the answer that I'm getting back, I think I understand that it's not exactly what they're looking for. There are just a lot of people involved who have either a lot of heart for the work or a lot of fear about the work. And sometimes that leads to us having a little bit of swirl. So I think that's something that probably is just good to keep in mind. And when I do find someone who knows that, it's so great when they're willing to be like, how can we help you get these answers? What exactly do you need from us? We know that what you're doing is going to take a minute. We know there's a lot of people involved. That's always like so appreciated.
And that's so great to hear because there's so many situations, like I can think of one in particular and recently where, you know, all of us spent so much time on a bid and the treatment and calls and everything and weekend work over a holiday. And, you know, we were supposed to hear last Thursday about the job and it's between us and one other artist. And then on Friday, they were like, it'll be Monday. And then Monday, I didn't hear anything. And then Tuesday, today's Tuesday, right? Tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday. Yesterday.
Yeah, even longer.
Didn't hear anything. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to reach out again. And then this morning, I reached out and I still haven't heard anything. Yeah. So the obvious answer is like, okay, we likely did not get the job. However, that doesn't have to be the answer. And also, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes because it is very weird to not hear back.
Right.
So there is something going on and they're just not ready to share what that something is at the moment.
Yeah. And honestly, to be completely candid, the exact same thing is happening with me right now. And I'm doing the same thing right now. And just trust me when I say that I am so aware that it is like weird that I'm not able to give a firmer answer because you're like, you guys, we have got to align on this. We have got to figure this out today. And sometimes it just comes down to clients are doing a lot of work on their side and we're getting silence from them, or we don't have anything in writing yet. And I would hate to give anyone false hope or pull the rug out from under them or, you know, mislead them in any way. Like, I think that part of my job is being really clear with you guys and with vendors on what is happening. And I think sometimes a lack of information is almost an effort to like not cause any more swirl and be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm kind of shooting in the dark here. Like, I don't want to.
Although I
like,
would think
you know.
too, at some point it would be nice to get an email saying, hey, I'm not ghosting you. I'll get back to you. Like, no, don't give me any information. Just like, I hear you. I just don't have anything for you at the moment.
Right.
So
I do try to do that. I do try to be, I recognize that this has been a long one. There's a lot going on over here. So,
but I think depends
on the job and like depends on your team too, and how much they're willing to push. So,
and back to the original question, like, you know, or the original answer to the question, which is just like, there is a lot going on behind the scenes that, you know, we don't understand. Like, it's not that we don't understand. There's not always time to update us on. And sometimes it's like restraint and patience is probably best in those situations.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like our job also feels like a game of telephone where it's like the clients are getting information from someone, they're giving it to account, the account's giving it to me, I'm giving it to you. Like, and at any one point, if one part of that stalls up, you're like, okay, well, like what's going on? So yeah.
Okay. So, you know, our industry is changing so much, right? With AI, social media, all the evolving media platforms. Has your role changed at all? Or do you feel like kind of the core of what you do is still the same?
I feel like the core is the same, but the output and like the expectations are extremely different. AI, to be honest, isn't like a huge difference in my day-to-day. I think we really primarily use it for concepting, which can hurt the work sometimes because you're like, okay, well, now we have to recreate this concept that maybe isn't as easy to do from a production standpoint as if we had started from a blank slate. But I do think social is like where I feel my job changing month over month. Like what we're trying to create for social, the fact that in reality, that is where most people are viewing advertising content these days. Like, I feel like the brands that are really smart and are really on it and want to make things with social in mind and not just adapt something that's been made for TV into social are where like the most exciting work is happening. And so that's what I feel is so different than more traditional, longer, bigger budget production timelines. Like us wanting to put out fun, quick, smart social content is where I feel like everyone is trending towards these days.
And you're looking for artists. Are you looking for talent that like kind of specializes in that sort of stuff? Like how does that change for the type of you hire?
I mean, it definitely depends on the brief, like, but I feel like that brief is coming up more and more. And to see that someone has that in their book is huge. Like, that is how we know that they understand the medium. They get the tone of voice. Like, they know what kind of frills we maybe don't need during production because we're creating something that's supposed to be very social forward. And there are some creators and artists that I am like waiting to work with or always have in the back of my mind for projects because they get that so easily. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait until I have the right job for them because I know that those jobs like are coming up more and more.
Back to comping with AI. It was interesting to hear you say that, like, you know, it's good and bad, and that sometimes then you've got this concept that is, I'm going to put words in your mouth here, but like you have a concept then that the client has seen and they're expecting you execute off of that.
Yeah.
You're running into that so much.
Yeah.
And it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, here is AI, this shiny object, and all these agencies, you know, a lot of agencies, a lot of brands are trying to use it for a lot of legal reasons. They aren't choosing to use it as much out there in the world, but they are using it for comping and other stuff.
Right.
But then when it comes down to having to execute, we're being held to things, even though we're saying from the beginning and raising our hand, like, this is just a comp. We have to be able to have the flexibility. We don't know if we're going to find a location that does this. We don't know. Like, you know, I feel like we almost have to go back to like olden days, you know, tissue sessions where you hand draw a concept that has hardly anything in it.
Yeah. I know. And I feel like that's something that I feel like is really part of my job, is to like be the loud voice in the room that continues to remind everyone of that, because eventually like it will fall on production to have to recreate that. And if that expectation isn't clear from the second that I'm seeing it, then like I haven't done a good job of making sure everyone's expectations are set, like, so I do think sometimes you can say everything there is to be said and people still are going to be in love with an idea and an image that they've seen that isn't possible to recreate. But I mean, I'm really big on putting things in writing. I'm really big on having a caveat slide at the beginning of a deck and just covering ourselves in that way. Because I also think I want my team to be able, my team and like the artists that they're working with, to be able to have freedom if something really cool does come up in production to pivot on that, and say, we found this other amazing location. It's different, but it could push the work. Like, let's keep our minds open to that.
Which is also an interesting part of AI because, there are people out there who are executing with it. And I think, like, how are people going to miss that part of production where you're out and you're seeing the light and you're looking at locations and you're choosing something not on the fly, but like very intentionally instead of like, prompting it. I don't know. And it's really interesting to me to watch how creativity unfolds because AI offers a lot of opportunity for creativity as well. This is not a like anti-AI conversation. Yeah. This is just I'm sitting in the middle of it, just kind of wondering and hearing you say that about, I want my artist to be able to, or my creative to be able to pivot. Like, it's interesting.
And I think too, like, it really depends on who you're working with, but I think some people still really love like the analog aspects of what we do. Like, if you're working with someone who's hand drawing their boards, I do hear a lot, like, that's so cool that they did that. I love that they did it that way. And so I do still think there's like a lot of love for the process. I actually think that that's something that, like, bringing it back to what we were first talking about, I like learned to really, really appreciate when I was like at SNL and just getting started in my career is they do almost everything. They're completely analog. It's so... Yeah. And it's so about tradition and, well, we always print the scripts this way and this is how we distribute things and this is how this is done. It's very like we're physically in person together doing it. It's live. The sets have to be built that day. Like, and I think that really made me love the process in that way. And I do think that I have a lot of people on my teams who like the process. And sometimes I think that then the process can give you things to talk about. Like, this is how we made this. This is how that got done. And I don't think it's completely dead. I think the thing that kind of tends to kill it sometimes is just time and budgets, which sometimes are the pieces that are just getting squashed. Yeah. That's the thing that is like, okay, well, I don't know what you want from me, when sometimes the time and the budget just is not a good fit for what we're wanting to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like the team, my creatives always have so many cool ideas that they're bringing to the table, and they're really open to working with new vendors. They're really open to like, okay, this is a really cool person we found. How can we partner with them? Like, how do they do this? So yeah, that's been really fun for me. I mean, I think that as a producer, that's really fun because it lets you really flex your like muscle of finding people and reaching out to people that maybe you wouldn't have had an opportunity to work with before. So yeah.
And how do you find those people, or how do they find you? Like, how do you connect?
I feel like in so many different ways. When I was thinking about this earlier, I mean, email is really kind of, it depends on the day for me, because there's some days that my inbox is just flooded with other things and I don't have like the ability to comb through to the extent that I wish I could. I think that the way I find a lot of people organically is on Instagram, candidly. Like, I'm on Instagram a lot. I'm always saving photographers that come across my feed. If I ever get sent someone's page, I'm following them if I think it's interesting, and then I'm kind of keeping them in the back of my mind. I feel like that's the way I like keep track of artists I'm interested in, and that is a way I find a lot of new people. I also think talking to people like you and like partners that I know who, if I have a project where I don't really know where to start, being like, hey, we have this idea. Does anyone come to mind for you? Like, is this something that you have the perfect person for, that you've been waiting for a brief like this? And I feel like sometimes it leads to like people I never would have been able to find otherwise. So it's great to have a good network who you can reach out to with any and all ideas that you have.
Yeah, I think a network is really important. I talk about that a lot on here, the idea that like the relationships that you have, sometimes you don't sometimes a creative will come to you and be like, I'm so inspired by this. I'm creating this. Let's reach out to them. Other times they're like, here's what we're working on. Who do you know? And in those cases, you really do have to rely on your relationships to kind of reach out and if they aren't right, point you in the right direction. And a lot of times people are like reaching out to people like me as a resource, not just who's on my roster, but like, I want to be a resource for you. So if I don't have anyone that, photographs school buses, like, believe me, I've gotten like weird, random, like very specific requests. Yeah. I want to also be able to point you in the right direction of someone who might be able to help you.
Yeah, totally. And just like there are such specific requests like that where when I get an ask like that, I'm like, I know this must exist somewhere. I know that there is someone out there who is waiting for a job like this. And it's just a matter of like the phone tree of finding them and getting to that person somehow. So, yeah.
And how do you organize your, I know we don't have file cabinets with folders anymore, but are they bookmarks or, collections on Instagram? Like, how do you keep track of it all?
I'm very big on, saving things on Instagram just for inspiration. And like this photographer, this image looks great. Like I could see that being something that could come across my desk at some point. But I also am very big on, I have like a master Excel sheet called my Rolodex. And whenever there's someone that I want to be able to find again, and I know in the future will be great for me to have, I put them on there. Like I have it organized, here's beauty photographers, here's product, here's, felt animation, here's whatever, like anything that I'm like, okay, one day I might need this. The Rolodex is big for me.
And a producer that I met with yesterday was telling me this story about somebody, like a shared friend came up and she was like, oh my God, remember her? Back in the day, she had a Pinterest board of all the photographers that she worked with and that she targeted or that targeted her and that she knew. And everybody wanted her Pinterest board. It became this like industry, coveted thing. And I was like, so interesting. Like as you grow those collections of bookmarks or Pinterest or, collections on Instagram or whatever, like they're valuable. Like you put a little time and effort into that.
Yeah. And I feel like I didn't start doing that. And someone along the way, I can't remember, I was probably at Gray because it was probably pretty early in my career, said to me, I think it was about where you save down your director and photographer searches. And they said, that's your property. Like that search is yours. That's not the agency you work for or the account you work on. So save that on your personal drive because you're going to need that again and again. And I found that to be so true. Like, there are director of photography searches I did years ago that I'll use as a jumping off point and like a thought starter if something similar comes up. And I'm like, I know I had people in this same vein. Like, let's just start there.
What advice do you have for people like on their Instagram or on their website? Like for people like you who are looking at it, what are you like, oh my God, that's so annoying. Please don't do that. Or, oh, that's super helpful when it's organized that way. Like, is there anything that kind of jumps out to you?
Yeah, I think just when it's organized by like type of work, like something that I find happens a lot is I need to send like rough first ideas to my team so quickly that I don't necessarily have time for people to put together like a custom link or a book or anything for me. And sometimes I don't even want to ask that because it's so early on that like I don't want to have them go through the work of doing that for me. But if I can send them to like a food styling section of the website and be like, hey, is this right? Like, is this the right idea? Am I thinking about it correctly? Like, that's so much easier for me. And then I don't have to have people doing work for me that might not be necessary for them to be doing,
No, and I appreciate that because there are a lot of photographers out there that just, don't have them organized as best that they should or as they could. I don't want to say should, just like as they could. And, that takes time and whatever. Yeah. So it is the one thing I tell them all the time. Like, it is so important to have those categories or those albums and it doesn't matter if some of the images are repetitive and can go into the same album because like, I don't know how much time you're going to spend on that website. And I want you to see the most relevant work for that category. And if you're just popping into, lifestyle, but not, environmental portraiture, like you need to see the most relevant work for each of those. And if there's a crossover between the two, like they should I can't expect you to go into the other one.
Right. And sometimes it is so quick. Sometimes it's just a glance of, does this look generally in the right vein? Okay, cool. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm just wanting to get a sense of, do they work with a lot of people? Is it more landscape? Is it more motion? Are they very posed feeling? Like, how am I evaluating things from the first like 2 scrolls, just to get a general sense before we start diving into the specifics.
And when you're looking for talent, are you mostly looking for, are your jobs like motion forward with like piggyback stills, or are they stills jobs where you add motion and the photographer could also do it? Like, or is it just a variety?
I think they're majority motion driven. And then we're trying to capture stills on the same set. I mean, I personally, and I feel like I've probably said this before to you, but like, I love the stills forward jobs. I think if I had been working in this industry, like a couple of years before I did start, I would have been just a photography producer. That's like what I love producing, but those jobs just don't come up very frequently. Yeah. So I think that it usually is, all right, we know we need to get all this video and clients have decided they want stills to be a part of it. How similar is that? How much can we break that apart from the main set and the main shooting? Like, how are we breaking that down?
And are you going to production companies for that?
I think it depends on if I have like separate money for it, to be honest. Yeah. Like, if I have my own bucket of money, I probably will be figuring it out on my own and then saying, hey, we're also going to be doing stills. How do we merge these two things? But really often we don't have a separate bucket of money for it. So it kind of becomes something that I'm hoping our production company can help me figure out along the way.
Yeah. I've been seeing that more and more, so much so that, we started repping a production company called Origin Productions. Just because we're recognizing, like, we also represent a post-production house and we have our artists, and we recognize that jobs are coming in from so many different places. Like, the post-production house could have a job that requires a photographer. The production company would have a job that required a director and maybe a separate piggyback photographer. And the photographer might get a call that requires, just the photographer, but, might require post-production. It's like everybody's kind of sharing the channels through which the jobs are coming. Yeah. So we found that by adding that, it's been helpful.
They're really all kind of mixed up together now. And I think also, in order to cause the least friction on set, like, I always want to get that situation figured out early, because you want to be able to share resources in the easiest way possible. And I feel like if you are all going through one source of production, then that's going to happen the most naturally. It's not going to be a fight for time and resources and where our attention is and all of that.
Yeah, and that's also a hard thing, I'm imagining, from your point of view, to figure out the resources in that situation, right? Because it's not a like cut and dry, like, I have this much for this and this much for this. It's like you have one bucket of money that has to get allocated, not necessarily evenly, but everybody needs enough to do what they need to do.
Yeah. So it just depends on the job of where you start, and then you kind of build out from there. Like, what is the thing that our attention is really on getting out of this? And let's figure it out once we know how much that's going to take up. Like, I feel like that's kind of the only way to do it.
So when you land on an artist or 2 or 3, and you kind of go through the bidding process with them, obviously the creative call is very important. And of course, the treatment is very important. Talk to me a little bit about both of those and kind of, what works, what doesn't, how much do you value them, any stories that you can share about either?
Yeah. On creative calls, really all I'm trying to get out of it, like, I'm trying to get a sense of the photographer and who they are, but I'm really just hoping to make my creatives feel comfortable with who they are. Like, and for us together to get a sense of, is this someone we could see being a really helpful partner to us? Like, I think that the biggest thing we're always looking for is who's someone who is going to be a true partner through this process, through all the craziness of reviews and getting last minute feedback and having to pivot on things. There is a lot of it that's about the work, but a lot of it is just kind of a vibe check of, is this someone I want to be in the trenches with when things come up? So I think that's kind of what we're really looking for. Like, the best calls, the calls that go the most smoothly, and then afterwards we're all saying that was amazing, like I'm so excited about that, are the ones where the artist or the director photographer is like bringing that up to us and kind of asking questions to help us get there, being like, what are your concerns with this? What do you think the clients are really invested in about this project? What are any watch outs I should have in mind? Because then we know that they're going to be with us on our side through the entire job. And that's really, really nice to have. I think that's kind of our fear a lot of the time, is that inevitably feedback's going to come in, things are going to have to change. And we don't want someone who's going to be upset by that or take that really personally in a way that, like, we usually don't want to change things, but it is the nature of our job. Like, we work in client services. So that is what's going to have to happen. And if we can have someone who's going to be on our side through that, that's amazing.
Yeah. I was on a creative call today, and it's really interesting because the creatives were so enthusiastic about like sharing their deck and walking us through the deck. But that by the time we got to the end of the call, there wasn't a lot of time for the photographer, who's also the director in this case, to kind of chime in with a lot more, because they had kind of taken up so much time explaining the job to us. Yeah. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. Like, I don't know. It felt like that the idea of what the purpose of the call was kind of forgotten. Like, we all read the deck, I could have walked through with the producer the specifics of the job, right? We could have spent less time on that and more on the big picture things, where they were like asking the artist questions and the artist can chime in. But by the time it was like, do you have any questions? There was like nothing left unsaid. Like, there was no room for anything at that point. And they also shared the deck with us literally on the call. So it's like, I had seen like little parts of the deck, but not all of it. And so I don't know, it was really interesting. And it made me wish we had more time. It was like the old creative calls where it was just like, all you talked about was the creative, and you have to get into the logistics of all the other little thing. And there weren't 10 people on the call chiming in with all their, points of view and stuff. So,
right. I feel like I often try to have, before we do a creative call, like a producer to producer call, to be like, let's get a lot of this out of the way first. Like,
that's great.
My team is so busy, and I don't want to take up any of their time with them hearing me explain again and again and again the logistics of it. And I don't want to have to take up any of the photographer's time with something that their producer really is the one that needs to hear. So,
well, if you think about it, if you're going to sit on 3 calls, you don't need to have the same three calls.
Right.
Like you said, get that out of the way first. And let's really concentrate on the personality of the artist on that call.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes we think of them as almost briefing for the treatment if there is going to be a treatment phase. And I think that kind of is where a lot of the us giving so much info comes from. Yeah. Because we're like, we want you to know all these things. So when you are making your treatment, you have like all the nuances of this project and how we got to where we are. Yeah. But I agree. You kind of need to make sure that by the end of that, once we've brain dumped everything that we know, okay, let's talk about what your thoughts are on it, how we make it happen, any concerns you have, all of that. Yeah.
And what about like your budgeting and estimating? Do you find that your clients are giving you the budgets and you're sharing them with the teams? Are you feeling like your budgets are getting cut now? You're being forced to do more with less?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely just being given to me. Like, by the time the budget gets to me, I'm executing against it. I think sometimes there are different levers you can pull and say, hey, we can't afford this, but if you want to pay more, I'll break it out and have it on the side. And so sometimes there's opportunities for things like that, but really the bulk of it is, this is what your budget is. And I do think it depends so much on the client and the agency, like how small your budgets are feeling and how much you're expected to create against them. I think that it's really a culture thing of like, is the producer expected to create something that almost feels impossible to do? Or are they expected to advise the team on, I don't think we can do that for this amount. We need to change the concept. So it's really interesting to think about, because that has changed so much account to account and agency to agency that I've worked at.
What do your budgets look now? Like the projects that are coming across your desk that are, well, and maybe it's not a budget question. Maybe it's just like a regular project question. Like, are they social projects? Are they motion projects? Do they vary? Like what is coming across your desk right now?
To be honest, I've been getting a lot more like traditional projects recently, which I'm really liking. I think that's just a matter of we're pitching really big ideas and making really big ideas. And I think clients are excited about that.
Well, when it comes time to awarding the job, do you find that, you're presenting three really great options, three maybe similar budget levels or different, but you've worked hard to make sure that all three you would be happy with. Do you find that the client ends up choosing, or based on your recommendation, or do you find, I guess that's a two-part question. Like, do you find that the client chooses, or do they choose based on your recommendation?
I think usually they'll take our recommendation pretty seriously. Like, we put a lot of thought into not just the creative of the reco, but how they seem as partners. Does their production approach make sense? How do we feel about all the different aspects of what they've presented? So I think by the end of it, like, usually clients will really listen to our recommendation because we've done a lot of thought thinking about it. And then they'll be able to take away and evaluate and see if they agree. But I do feel like the agency kind of doing all of the legwork there means a lot. So that's nice.
And is there anything that you think reps or artists should understand better about the process? Like the kind of the same barriers that you run up against time and time again? Or do you feel like most people have a good understanding?
I think most people have a pretty good understanding of it. I think the one thing, kind of what we talked about earlier, of like sometimes the time that it will take to actually get something over that final finish line is a little bit more drawn out than we would hope or expect. Like once we get to the award meeting, usually there's a lot of work that has to be done on the client side in terms of even things as like the minutia of just the paperwork and being like, are we like really good to kick this off? Like, are we
paperwork?
Yeah. So
It's
I think
gotten
that
so complicated, hasn't it, over the years?
Yeah. And just being like, again, I don't want to say anything too soon until that stuff is lined up and good. Like, I want to be excited to kick off with someone and ready to hit the ground running. So I do think that sometimes is something that can drag a little bit. But I think usually people are pretty understanding about we have to go through these different layers. I mean, I try to be really transparent about if there are like multiple steps, how many steps we can expect and like how long that's going to take.
And are there any common mistakes or maybe pitfalls that photographers or directors or even reps tend to make when they're in this process? Like, is there anything that, oh my God, when this happens, it's like a big no?
I think that just if there are any like watch outs that we've given, trying to like override them or sell us on something else, like that sometimes for us is like, oh, this is kind of a red flag. Like this makes us nervous that this is only going to continue for the rest of the process getting to the shoot. And I think that often like things they're bringing up, it's not the ideas that we don't like, but it's ideas that we know our clients really well. And like we know what's not going to fly. And so I think we're like trying to help you not spend time on that by saying these are the things that we should avoid. And there's like a reason that we should avoid them. We've talked about it with them. There's all this thought that's gone into it. It's not going to work. Let's lean in on what clients really do like and figure out how we make that something that we also feel really excited about, you know?
And what's your process for letting someone know they didn't get the job?
I always try to call. And it's so funny because when I started, I kind of just like assumed that was what we did. And a lot of people would be like, oh my God, thank you for the call. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I wouldn't have thought not to, especially if you've gone through the work of treating, bidding, getting on the phone. Like, I feel like we really sometimes know people by the end of it. Yeah. I don't want to leave them in the lurch. So I always try to call. I will say sometimes that kind of bites me because it takes me longer to actually get someone on the phone. Yeah. And there are times when I'll end up just texting them and being like, hey, we're playing phone tag. I don't want to leave you hanging any longer. This is what I'm calling about. Yeah. Especially if it's, a no that is pretty, like, I think maybe if we could both kind of see it coming or it was taking a really long time to get an answer. But Yeah, it's like that is genuinely the worst part of my job. Like I am like telling my team, I'm like, do not contact me. I have to go break up with like some people, and it just is the worst. But it is what it is.
But I really do appreciate that you do pick up the phone, even if you try, right, and you can't connect. Like just the fact that you try, because I can't tell you how many emails I get that are like, "So sorry, we went another direction," and you're like, that falls so flat, like really hard when like 5 people have been working on a treatment and a job, maybe over the weekends and late nights and after shoots and like, which is fine. Like you don't expect to get every job, of course, but it's like, is there any feedback? What was the reason? Is there anything you can tell me that happened inside the room? Something that they liked, something that they didn't like. I mean, there could be no reason other than the other artist had exactly what they were looking for, or they worked with the person before. I mean, it could be a very simple reason. Like it doesn't have to be any like big learning moment. But I think when you just hear like, "So sorry, we went in another direction," it's like, oh wow, I put in so much effort. I wish you'd give me a little bit more. I always say just one more sentence goes a long, long way.
Yeah. And I feel like I always try to be pretty candid on the reasons why. Like I feel like I really trust that you guys will take that information and deliver it as gently or to the right people or whatever you need to with it. So I feel like I usually, for better or for worse, like I'm a very honest person.
No, that is
sometimes maybe gets me in a little bit of trouble, but I feel like I try to be really candid about like, hey, this did not go over well. Like I would just know that for the future.
Like that is so important, because there might be times that I might be saying something to an artist like, oh, I don't think that landed well on the call, or well, maybe next time we do this or whatever, or like explaining to them you can't call from your car, or like, which I don't think is wrong. Like it is totally fine sometimes to do that. I just use that as an example. But
but there are certain things like that like if someone doesn't know that, they don't think it's a big deal at all. And sometimes if someone's like really unprepared or something, it's like that maybe really leaves a lasting impression on the team. It does.
And if I'm the only one saying it and nobody's backing me up and they're like, well, no, but they said my treatment was amazing and I was great and they want to hire me again. I'm like, yeah, but they might not be saying the quiet part out loud. Like when you do say that quiet part out loud, it helps me because I might be already saying it, or they might have it in their head that they're thinking that already. And like, so thank you. Like, just I'm here to tell you and clap for you that like, I know what you're doing is really hard and it is very much appreciated when you do it. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think for the rest of 2025? Oh, wait, it's not 2025. It's 20.
Yeah. Wait, what? I was like, wait a second.
2026. Sorry.
Like what types of projects do you think?
Just like your prediction for the rest of the year. Like, do you expect it to be busy? What kind of projects do you think AI is going to come into your agency more? Do you think you're going to be trying to put the brakes on that? Like, what do you think? Got a half a year left, a little bit more than that.
That's a great question. I feel like that's something I really like about working here is you never really know. Like we work on a ton of different clients and things come up out of nowhere and are like exciting and you get to jump on them really quickly. I'm hoping just to get a wider variety of projects. I feel like that's something I talk about with my teams a lot. Like I'm really excited about working with new vendors and new artists and like really being a partner to my creatives and bringing them people. That's something that I feel like I love, finding someone cool and just pinging it to them and being like, hey, just keep this in mind. Like I just found this. I think it's interesting. So that's something we've been talking about a lot is like getting production in the room with creatives earlier so that we can pitch them people that maybe they wouldn't have thought of and that can help them kind of ideate. So I guess that's my prediction that I hope that
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I always end the podcast with the same 2 questions. I've been doing it for years and years and years and years. And I don't really want to change because I like the idea that they're the same. What is your favorite thing to do on a Sunday? And then if you weren't a producer, what would you want to be?
Yeah. And I love that you do have 2 go-to questions. I feel like I have certain go-to questions that I'm always asking at dinners on a shoot and edit when we're like waiting for something.
Yeah.
And I also have like my go-to like fun things that people love to talk about. So I like that. I think on a Sunday, this is so funny because this is like a kind of boring answer, but I'm a huge reader. Like I read a ton. And I think that something I love about New York is just like finding new spaces to go and have a coffee and read.
Mhm.
And I've found that like even when I'm traveling, I could be in like a completely different city and I'm inevitably doing that exact same thing. So I'm pretty one note in that regard. And I love just like exploring new parts of New York. Like I really love living in New York. So I feel like there's always something new to see. And especially as the seasons change, we were just saying like it's so nice.
Oh
out.
my God. The what do you call it? The trees right now are crazy. They're so beautiful. Of course, we all have allergies, but
Yeah.
it's so beautiful out there. And the tulips, they're starting to blossom. Oh my God, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. And one of my best friends just moved up to the Upper West Side near Central Park. And it's been really fun, like being up in that area more. And yeah, the cherry blossoms. And we went to the Shakespeare Garden, which was all in bloom this past weekend. So
That's
I feel
awesome.
like just getting out and like enjoying
Yeah.
living here and being in this city.
Yeah.
And yeah, I am a huge reader, so I spend a lot of time reading.
Okay. Well, when we hang up, we're going to talk about the
Yeah, definitely.
too. So
Definitely. And then what was the second question?
if you were a producer,
Oh yeah. This is one of my questions I asked my team at dinner the other day. I have always thought I would have really liked working in the restaurant industry. Like,
Oh, wow.
I feel like there's a lot of similarities to working in production. I really think I thrive in like a kind of high octane environment like that.
Mhm.
I love like the energy of getting something done with a group of people. My boyfriend always says that like I have a little pep in my step when I've gotten something done with the crew. Like I love like being part of a team working on something. And I think that that's something I'm curious about. I wonder if I would have actually enjoyed it. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you would, because I've always said the best people I've worked with were waitresses or have worked in the restaurant industry, because you like do all the translating. You're like, client service, working with the front of the house and the back of the house, like all of it. So
yeah. And I was a waitress when I lived in Michigan before I moved to New York. I was a waitress at a diner for a brief stint. So I think I learned a lot about how I produce from there. Yeah.
Well, Lauren, it was amazing to have you as a guest. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on here today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. This was so nice.
Enjoy the rest of your spring.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.